Perez Hilton is going to court next week. Justin Baldoni responded to Isabella Farah, basically saying he's harassing her in the court docket. The judge responded to Justin Baldoni trying to quash Blake Lively's subpoena to his insurance company. And Justin Baldoni's lawyer, Brian Friedman, wrote to the judge why he shouldn't be sanctioned and shouldn't have to pay for Blake Lively's legal fees. Let's get into it. First off, as you know, this guy's trying to get out of being subpoenaed. He's claiming that he's a journalist and his sources are protected, even though Justin Baldoni's crisis manager has already come out and said he was working with them to upload and post content. Whether it was for money or not, who knows? But what he's trying to do right now is quash the motion, and he doesn't want to do it in New York with Judge Lyman, so he filed to do it in Vegas, and now he's got his response from the judge. He's going to be in court next Thursday, which is August 28th at 12:15 Vegas time, apparently representing himself. And I'm not sure if he's going to be fighting his subpoena and motion to quash, or if the judge is going to rule on whether or not he can do all of this in Vegas, or if they're going to bump it back to New York. So stay tuned on that. As for Isabella Farah, this is the first time we've seen her in the court docket. So a few days back, Justin Baldoni's team filed to be able to subpoena her in an alternate way. They tried two different addresses apparently to give her a subpoena. Neither one was her address. They had reached out twice to her attorneys, but in the meantime, she and the attorneys have been going back and forth about a different situation. So they weren't going to respond to the subpoena until they got the response. And anyway, we ended up with her filing in the court docket to quash his request to subpoena her in another way. Just a super quick summary of what's going on here. Blake subpoenaed Isabella in February. Isabella immediately reaches out to Justin Baldoni's team because in her contract, it states that there's any legal things that pop up, they have to pay for it based on her contract. However, when she asked for payment, they responded saying, sure, we'll pay you, but we want to pick your lawyer and we want to respond to the subpoena however we want to do that. And she said, heck no, I'm not giving up my control. And they started doing a back and forth. I'm not a lawyer, but here's MJ from New York who's explaining exactly what was in her contract and what this means.
Indemnity is basically like I'm going to reimburse you, and defense is I'm going to run the show. I pick the lawyer, I decide the strategy. The indemnifying party, which means the one paying, usually does get to pick the lawyer. So there is case law establishing that. But very importantly, there are exceptions. And one of them, the biggest exception, is conflict of interest. So if the indemnitor's interests clash with the indemnified party, clash with Isabel's, the indemnified person typically gets to pick their own independent counsel, and the indemnitor still pays. They are being sued by Blake Lively. So that's a textbook conflict of interest.
So basically what MJ is saying is that she needs her own lawyer because Blake is suing Wayfair, Justin, etc. So their lawyers have a conflict of interest. They are trying to protect Justin Baldoni and Wayfair. So she needs her own lawyers who will protect her and have her best interests in mind. She's not trying to quash the subpoena. She said she will absolutely comply, but she doesn't think that they should be able to do it in an alternative way because they haven't shown good faith in trying to subpoena her in the first place, and they're doing this all for the media. She also said she doesn't understand why she's being subpoenaed by them because she already gave everything she has to Blake Lively and says that Justin Baldoni's team is basically asking for the exact same things, which they would already have a copy of. Here's MJ explaining how that works.
So the conspiracy theory floating around is that if you receive a production from a third party in commercial litigation, you do not have to give it to the other side. Do you see at the very bottom there where it says notice to the person who issues or requests the subpoena, that a notice and a copy of the subpoena must be served on the other party in the case before it is served on the person to whom it is directed. So that means back in February when Blake Lively subpoenaed Isabella, Justin Baldoni's team got this before she subpoenaed Isabella. That's not a suggestion, it's the law. So in federal court, and especially in the Southern District where this case is taking place, you are required to serve a copy of the third-party subpoena on the other parties.
As I said, MJ works in New York and does her own litigation, so she knows how this process works. And she said the reason that they have to give everything to the other side is so that the other side can file a motion to quash if they wish to. Baldoni's team, of course, responded to her filing with this letter to the judge. And the first thing they point out is they say, the opposition is primarily an inappropriate attack upon Mr. Baldoni and his counsel. And at the end, they start and say, in July of 2025, the Wayfair party subpoenaed Ms. Farah for documents that she either neglected to produce or were not requested by Ms. Lively's subpoena. According to the filing and the dates on the emails, it looks like Wayfair's team sent this email to Isabella's lawyers just before the long holiday weekend. So it was July 3rd, and then they followed up again with a second email, but apparently it had other requests and confirmations in that they weren't ready to agree to yet. So in her filing, they said she had no idea that Baldoni was attempting to serve her with a subpoena, but only that he was trying to trade indemnity for acceptance of a subpoena. So they thought that Baldoni was basically saying, if you accept this subpoena, we'll give you what you want. Baldoni's letter goes on to say, Mr. McKelman seems more focused on if it ends with us purported contractual obligation to indemnify Ms. Farrer and cover his fees. Obviously, that's her biggest concern right now. She can't afford to pay for all these lawyers, and it's in her contract that they'll pay. So that was their main focus. They weren't worried about the subpoena at this time. They wanted the other issue resolved, and then they would deal with the subpoena. Her lawyers said that Justin Baldoni's team wasn't diligent in trying to personally give her the subpoena, which is the way this is supposed to work. And they basically admit that. They said that they thought the best route was going to be through her legal team. But as you know from the court docket, that's not how subpoenas work. You have to give it personally. And if you're not able to do that, then you can reach out by other means, like contacting their legal team and seeing if they will accept it on her behalf. And they didn't answer right away, as we said, because they were worried about other things. Then they try to insinuate that Blake Lively and Isabella are working together somehow with their legal teams, and they say it appears that she accepted service of Blake Lively's subpoena without objection. But again, it says appears because we don't know how Blake Lively gave the subpoena to Isabella. But again, it's usually done in person. Now, this is where it starts to get a bit shady. Instead of them saying they want this subpoena followed through, they say, yeah, well, if we can't get any information, then Blake can't use her either. So they add in here saying, the Wayfair parties are willing to stipulate that none of the parties will use any communications to, from, or concerning Miss Farrer, or any testimony from her in any manner. They go on to say that this should satisfy Isabella because she wants to stay out of this, and that if Blake's team doesn't agree, that they feel the court should enter an order excluding Miss Farrer as a witness and excluding the use of any communication to, from, or concerning Miss Farrer in any manner in this action. I don't know about you, but I actually can't wait for Judge Lyman to respond to these motions. I always look forward to his responses to see exactly how the court rules in this, because I'm not a lawyer. I have no idea if any of these letters hold merit or not, but it does seem extremely odd that they were subpoenaing her and now they're like, let's just throw out everything, because I think she's probably a pretty important witness. I think the two of them talked a lot about what had gone on set. Okay, up next, we had Wayfair trying to dismiss Blake Lively's subpoena to their insurance company, the one that's suing them. So Harco Insurance filed a lawsuit against Justin Baldoni to state they will not cover any of their expenses due to this trial because they basically lied to their insurer. They didn't tell them there were any claims in the works, and the insurance company now has evidence that that's not the case. Judge Lyman said the motion to quash is denied, and he said it's because parties may obtain discovery regarding any non-privileged matter that is relevant to any party's claims or defense. So basically he's saying Blake Lively has a right to this. It's relevant to her claims. He said the Wayfair parties lack standing to quash this subpoena. They didn't prove that Blake Lively doesn't need any of this information. In fact, the opposite. She wants to know exactly what Team Baldoni told their insurance company when they finally admitted what was going on in this situation. The judge also said Baldoni can't quash this because it's not his subpoena. It's to a non-party. It's to Harco. So Harco would have to be the ones that tried to quash this, not Wayfair. He specifically states here, the subpoena calls for information regarding what the Wayfair parties told Harco regarding complaints of SH and when it provided that information to them. And it says, as Lively notes, the Wayfair parties' knowledge regarding her claims, as well as the date that they acquired this knowledge, is very relevant to her claims under both federal and California state law. Now we move on to Brian Friedman's filing. So Blake Lively, as you know, has filed for sanctions. That means she wants him punished for speaking about her in the public, and she wants him to pay her legal fees. Well, he has now responded. Brian Friedman has been extremely vocal in the media, and honestly, I don't think it was the best look for Justin Baldoni, and I can't imagine that he was impressed with this at all. Brian Friedman kind of took a back seat there for quite some time. Wasn't really seen in the public, wasn't speaking on Baldoni's behalf, and I think that was on purpose. But we now have his filing, and he started off by saying that in her latest efforts to curtail opposing counsel Brian Friedman's speech and chill his ability to effectively defend his clients. Miss Lively does not argue, much less provide any evidence that Mr. Friedman's statements are likely to taint the jury. He says because there are millions of people in New York and he said these things 8 to 9 months ago that they're not going to impact the jury at all, what he said in the public. And then I kid you not, he literally said, well, she did it first. He adds at the bottom and he says, Miss Lively conveniently ignores her own counsel's very public campaign to savage defendants and their counsel in the public eye. Then he makes a little underhand dig at the fact that she believes there was a PR smear campaign which ruined her reputation. He says that she has also ignored the fact that she was a highly divisive figure long before Mr. Friedman came onto the scene. Blissfully tone deaf to her own conduct, Miss Lively is not only unwilling to accept that her own celebrity and actions have generated the media frenzy she now complains of and the weight of negative publicity against her. So again, he's saying there was no PR smear campaign. Everything I said didn't matter. She did it all to herself. He goes on to list some of the things he claims Blake Lively's lawyers have said about him or Baldoni in the public and in the press. But again, none of them are really unprofessional like the things he was saying, like selling tickets to her deposition at Madison Square Garden. That's it for the filings for the last few days. I will definitely let you know when the judge responds to any of these or if anything else gets uploaded to the docket. Make sure to hit follow.